Hey, Alex, how are you doing this morning? Finally got the things ready to go, so glad to get you on this beautiful Friday, and it looks like you have a lovely sunny background on yourself as well.
Just hanging out here in the fields of Windows 95. Thanks for those hanging out in the chat. Me and Reed talked like 5 minutes about OpenAI and all the drama and all the Silicon Valley movie that will probably be made one day. You'll have to find it in the ethers, but we weren't live, so thanks everyone for hanging out here while we were dealing with some of the technical stuff. Really excited to be here today. I've been just kind of teasing out a bunch of little Power Query shorts out on either LinkedIn or Twitter, talking about kind of Copilot and Power Query. I'm in generative AI, all these new words I've added to my vocabulary. Excited to be here. I'm going to demo some really interesting things and kind of build a foundation as well for people who are starting to get into Copilot for Data Factory, which is the official marketing name. There's a lot of cool stuff. I'll be very curious as we go. I've got some pre-canned inputs, but I'm actually looking forward to more fun from our chat. At some point in time, we'll ask you for inputs and we'll test the model. We'll see how we do. I don't know how it will respond, but hopefully we'll have a very interactive session, kind of taking that route.
But again, questions, as we know, will just be popped up onto the screen, like Teletubby Land from Donald Parrish. So make sure that if you have a question, go ahead and pop those up, and I will display them, and we can chat about them. Awesome. Both of us love questions, and it helps to keep it conversational. I will say that there's been a lot of interesting things in the news in the last week, and even in the last 48 hours. For keeping on topic, I will put a limit, a bit of a limiter on myself, because I can usually spend an hour talking about the weird new stuff that's coming out. And for context of people, like Sam was kicked out and brought back to OpenAI very quickly. And apparently now there's also these things about, I guess one of the reasons is that there is this new type of like generalized AI that they're starting to come out, which is, it like self-teaches itself even more than previously. Like we're getting closer to that like Skynet type stuff, but it's, if those questions come up, we will happily talk about it maybe towards the end, but let's keep the AI related questions as we can as focused to integrations with Microsoft products today, even though it's very fun to talk about that other stuff for sure and what the implications mean.
AGI is certainly an interesting topic. I don't know.
It's artificial generalized AI, right? Which just means it has the ability to learn new skills or whatever that is. Yeah.
And I think, again, we're not going down the rabbit hole, but it was like able to do some mathematical computations that it wasn't able to do in the past. And like,
it's a grade school level math, but it was something that was, it figured out how to do, it's cool stuff, but a little, the hairs on my neck standing up just a little bit,
Well, then hopefully today we'll prove that we can still have jobs, even in the world of Copilot and AI, as we kind of go through demos and have some fun. Yeah. Let's get started with kind of this quick video overview, if you don't mind, Reed, if you want to pass over my screen. And then I'm going to go ahead and play a video here. So for those hanging out, I'm going to mute myself real quick, and I'm going to hit start.
Welcome to this overview of Copilot for Data Factory in Microsoft Fabric. In this video, we'll explore how to enhance your creativity and productivity when authoring Gen 2 data flows. To begin, we'll use the Get Data experience, where we can search for existing connections via OneLake Data Hub or use any of the hundreds of connectors available today within Data Factory. After connecting to our source, we can browse available tables, views, and more to bring in the data that we need. Next, we'll use a starter prompt to gain insight into our query and any applied steps. For instance, in this example, we've learned that the source is Northwind and the rows have been limited to customers in the USA. Since we want to focus on orders and their details in this customer region, we will first join the two order tables together into a new query. A term like join, which is titled merge within Power Query, is easily able to be inferred. Now we'll limit our rows to only those where the ship region is in the USA to ensure consistency with our customers table. In the Copilot pane, the visual cues and titles on the cards, such as filter rows, are designed to help new or inexperienced users understand the keywords they can type or the buttons to click. After scrolling through and inspecting data in the data preview grid, we want to focus on the shipper name and regions and their total quantities. This results in a group by operation now being applied in a total sum of our quantity column. We'll now change the region name to abbreviation using a text input, and then update the query title in the visual diagram view. This ensures an augmented experience where simple tasks like renaming objects can still be accomplished with ease and based on the user's preference. Leveraging the power of Azure OpenAI, we can create a new query with state names, abbreviations, and Federal Information Processing Standard state codes. In the past, this would have required us to open a new browser tab, search for a website with the supported HTML table, create a new query with the web connector, and then apply necessary transformations. But now, all of this can be achieved with a text input, increasing the author's overall productivity. Continuing to enrich our data, we'll join the FIPS table and the US orders table together into a new query. We can further shape our table by asking it to move column positions and perform tasks like updating all column headers to a more readable format by adding spaces with a single input. For many, updating column headers is a tedious task that must be performed one at a time, but is now possible in just a few words. And in this last example, Copilot will assist in creating a rich calendar table for us by applying over 20 steps. In the past, this would have required numerous clicks, but with Copilot for Data Factory and Microsoft Fabric, it's done with just a few words. We hope you've enjoyed this overview of how Copilot for Data Factory can be leveraged as an AI-powered intelligent assistant that helps you focus on the task at hand and accomplishing complex tasks with ease.
Awesome. Read 3 minutes. I see comments here. People are like, I want to see this thing in actual action. I wanted to ground us first with just like an end-to-end demo experience of like, if I was to use Copilot, like how could I do iterative development? I'm with everyone else though, like let's get into actual demos. If you don't mind, we're just gonna jump right into it. I'm gonna scale up my browser, hopefully to a point where it's very readable for everyone. Good. Awesome. So kind of call out first, just Copilot is available today. It's being rolled out to specific regions and customer organizations. Some of the requirements, just right off the bat, it does require a premium capacity. So if I was to look at the settings here, premium
/ fabric, I'm assuming, premium capacity and or fabric capacity, or does it actually have to be premium?
Yeah, so there's actually going to be a couple different layers here. So first one is going to be that fabric does need to be enabled at your tenant. Yep. Second one is going to be that it does have to be a paid capacity of or equal to F64 or a P1 or above.
Okay.
So if you're using trials, unfortunately, Copilot is just not eligible for those today. But Ps or Fs, starting at the 64 P1, has to be enabled. Again, then you'll get access to kind of the tenant settings here. So if I was to go to admin portal, tenant settings, you'd see a new Azure OpenAI, and then kind of the ability to send data just across regions if you were kind of Europe or even US. So kind of be on the lookout for those whenever they start hitting your tenants. The rollout plan is currently slated just for now until March 2024 is when they want to have the majority of customers. Cool. All right. So I'm going to use a Fabric item here. It is only accessible through the Gen 2 data flow. So the Gen 1, again, just not available with Copilot. And then we'll go ahead and get this started here. Read at any point in time, like, please cut me off, especially as questions are coming through on the chat. I'm starting to see we've already got a pretty lively group, so I love seeing that.
So awesome. Curiously, I mean, with a lot of this stuff, you know, if kind of like with incremental refresh or any of the other items, you think there'll ever be considerations, or at least has there been conversations around capacities versus per users, or any adjustments at some point, kind of like how they've done it, just where they slowly migrate downstream to smaller SKUs, some of these extra fancy features.
Yeah, and obviously I don't have any decision making there.
Of course.
All I can say is, like, GPUs are the hottest thing in the market right now, and if you have some and you want to, you know, sell us a data center somewhere, please do. But right now, I think it's a lot of the GPU constraints that kind of just Azure Cloud in general is kind of working through, because we're rolling out Copilots for Office, for Windows. We just want to make sure we meet the needs.
And I think that you've just, and just as a quick add-on to that, is you've hit on the head of the things that stay in premium are usually the ones that are actually expensive to do from the back end. We got incremental refresh, and I've not been told this by a Microsoft employee, but I would be fairly certain the reason is it saves everybody money. Like, if you have less refreshes happening on, like, you know, a small set of rows versus the whole data set, like it's just less computing that's happening for both Microsofts and the customers in. So it's a cost saver. So I would imagine most of the things that you see that trickle down eventually are stuff that overall is saving everybody money rather than actually adding cost in the back end.
Yeah, cool. Well, then let's kind of jump in here. We've got an empty canvas, no data. If we were to press the Copilot pane, a couple of the things that we saw in the video, you know, first and foremost, we need some data. So either pressing the get data button here, or we have some of our starter prompts just here at the very bottom. So either getting data from, kind of adding a step, or even describing a query. I'll kind of talk through this in some slides here, but press the get data button, takes us through to the data window. And then from here, we'll go and just authenticate to kind of an OData source for the AdventureWorks. Or I'm sorry, this is Northwind, different company this time. So Northwind traders, press next. And then we'll go ahead and bring in a few different tables here. So hopefully this should feel very familiar to anyone that's doing Power Query today. Like, I'll talk about it through the model as well, just in terms of actual Copilot. So press create, done. We now have data into our window. I'm going to scroll through here, just kind of looking at some of the different things. I'm going to call out kind of country. Got a lot of different values here. Kind of one I'm going to point out here is this USA result, just at the very bottom. And I'm just going to use kind of a simple input here. So I don't know anything about Power Query. I don't know anything about these buttons and these clicks. I just want to say only keep customers in the United States of America. I'm going to press submit. So kind of a vague input. It doesn't necessarily align with the actual result within the data. So can it go ahead and find out that it's USA?
And then suggesting a step as well. Okay.
Yep. So it went ahead and added the step for us. If it wasn't what we were looking for, read, hey, let's undo it, right? Let's just delete that step. We'll kind of go back. We'll try again.
And you can also just, like, I guess, make a change just using the gear icons like you've always been able to.
Absolutely.
So curiously, would that teach the Copilot at all? Like, I mean, it's rather than undoing it, it's like it's close, but it's not right. Like, if you made a change to the step, would that in any way kind of instruct, oh, this is like, okay, good, I've now seen what you actually wanted me to do?
Not in the current format here, just in terms of like inputs and storing those. So if you make a change or an adjustment with the UI, like none of that's sent back to the underlying model. So again, I removed it, I undid it. One of my favorite tricks here is if you just right-click the text on the green card, you can actually do a copy of your text, kind of bring that back through. So I'll just go ahead and get this added one more time. And then especially as I step back and I just think about like inexperienced users, here's the icon, here's the name of the step. Next time you step into kind of Copilot, do I necessarily need to use this for maybe like a simple operation like this? Maybe not. Maybe it's like the search at the very top, and I'm saying, well, I'm trying to find filter rows. Oh, there's the location, home dash reduce rows. Find that here. So hopefully it's also finding the areas where you said, like, how do I augment my experience as opposed to just relying on Copilot solely? Let's do another one. Count the total number of customers by state. What would you kind of do on a UI context here, Reed, with this input?
I'm assuming this is going to be a group by function that's going to essentially do I'll be curious to know if it does a count rows or it actually does a proper distinct count. But yeah, I mean, it would be a group by state and then customer ID.
Awesome. All right. Well, Reed is translating the words into clicks. We'll see if they can translate Reed's clicks into actual steps here. So let's go ahead and take a look. Working on it. Group by.
Yep.
And we also have the row count here at the very end.
So curiously, it does a row count. Like, how does it know though that customer ID was distinct?
I don't think we asked for a distinct.
Yeah, well,
we could go back and ask.
So you said, total number of customers, but there's an assumption that it's making, because we didn't say that the table was unique, and we didn't actually tell it what represents a customer, because a customer could be represented by a row, or a customer could be represented by a distinct count. So I feel like there is a small assumption that it made, or maybe it's just the fact that we weren't explicit enough, so it defaulted to, this is a customer table. Likely it's going to be depending on if it's a type 1 or a type 2 dimensional, but I think this all just goes to the prompt engineering. I don't like the term engineer.
Yep.
Prompt cure, because you're not engineering anything, but you're a prompt curator. So the more specific your question, the better your output will be. So if you actually ask for the count of distinct customers, distinct number, yes, let's see what that would do.
All right, let's see. And please, for those in the chat, let us know too on prompt adjustments that you may like to see. We'll see what it kind of comes back with. I'll be curious to read. We're in the unexplored area. Interesting.
Okay. What's the whole code? It's table distinct. So it's distinct in the states. Count by state. Distinct dates. You select rows. Each region equals. Interesting. So it's trying to do a distinct, but it's giving a distinct count of the table for each of the categories inside of the table. So it got 70% of the way there. It's just distinct counting the wrong element, but that's why something like this is in preview.
Yep. So this is why, we've validated, we've looked at the underlying code, looked at the results. Undo. Let's get rid of this thing. It wasn't right. Get it out of here. I want to start talking about chaining though. So I'm going to say, let's do sort by smallest result. So count the total number of customers we said was a group by, and then this one would also be a sort. So in a UI, we'd have to do two different actions, right? First group by, and then our sort.
Okay.
We'll do it all at once here. I'm going to call out here, at least for the current implementation, everything is just kind of wrapped here in a subquery, but I'm going to go ahead and unwrap this here just for the purposes of having the UI. And then this will be cleaned up here relatively soon as well. Let's go ahead and adjust this. Let's go ahead and commit that. So Reed, it was able to take our one prompt and do two different activities.
Well, in that case, so the one thing that I've done a couple of times is deduplication. So on a type 2 dimension that has updated records for customers, sometimes you need to grab latest. So you'll sort by customer ID first, then you'll sort descending by entry date of whatever it might be, and then you do a deduplication on the customer ID. I would be curious to know if it could do a nested sort. So if you just on a raw table, please sort by customer ID, then sort by date, or just pick any two columns. Yes, you sort by customer ID, then ascending, order date descending. Because that does the nested sorting that's built into the query engine.
And I'm going to use the SQL abbreviations ASC and DSC. Does that work?
Yeah, let's do that.
Awesome. This is what I love, Reed. Random
Oh,
info.
I mean, yeah. Well, and I mean, it's fun for me just to see what this can do because like I'm just gonna throw out the stuff that I have to do anyways.
There we go. So if we were to look at the
Nice.
like M generated, we've got our ASC and DSC. So good there.
Yeah. Can I ask it to do one more thing, or do you want to keep going?
Let's keep going. No, let's keep going.
Okay. So take that last prompt and add one more step. So sort by those. Keep the first customer. Or keep the first row of customers. Essentially, let's assume that we're creating a latest customer table. So keep the remove duplicates on customer ID or something like that. Is it? Yeah, it's keeping the first row basically. I don't know which word would be better for it.
Yeah, and let's add a space too, so a little bit of ambiguity.
And I'll be curious to know if you have to put a then. Sort this. Maybe it just knows this is sequential, and then. Or if you have to explicitly say after, but let's see what this does.
Cool. So we've got our sort, we've got our remove duplicates as well on customer ID. We'll see where we end up here.
Here it should be 2 steps.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and check out kind of the underlying subquery. All right. It did pretty good.
Nice.
It did pretty good. So let's go.
The only thing it's not accounting for, which I know some data sources requires the buffer step, but that's a very technical thing that it would not be able to identify. But otherwise, that's impressive. It did the 2 sorts and did a deduplicate just exactly as requested.
Awesome. And then again, let's put ourselves into the shoes of an inexperienced user, or even like a colleague of ours where they're handing off their work to us, and we're like, "What did you even do?" There's all this crazy M. Mm-hmm. Describe this query. We're just gonna ask it here. Just give me a high-level overview. What is this query doing? What are some of the steps that are within it as well? And we'll hopefully get a description here in just a second. Awesome. So here's an explanation. We connected to Northwind from the OData. Yep. Here's our table. Select by our sorted rows, sort in ascending, and then order date and descending, and then also removing those duplicates.
You know where this needs to go is in the description of the steps. Like that is the perfect thing to put in the little, when you go to the properties. Also, a lot of people don't realize this exists. Can you just right click on any step and show the property of an applied step, and just stick something in there? Because that little icon shows up when you type notes into here.
Yes. And that's kind of the point today. Yeah. Go ahead, Reed.
No, it's just like I think it's a very hidden feature because I didn't discover that for years because I just never thought to look in the properties menu. But there's like a hidden description section which shows up your notes, and then it pops up right there as annotation. So I'd love that explanation to auto-populate those. That would be really nice.
Yeah. So if we were to kind of jump back over here, let me go and just remove all this stuff here. I'm going to hold Alt, so I'm going to select every line. Press enter, -- put. Here is documentation. Right.
I wish I knew as many keyboard shortcuts as a lot of other people do.
So there's every step that's been documented. If you were to hover above, like here's an explanation, here's documentation. Again, like the purposes for community events like these, is this stuff even helpful from like an explanation standpoint? Because the thing I don't want to do is commit a bunch of descriptions that you say, I don't really like that. There's no value to that. So if we were to use like this sorted rows example, sort the table by customer ID in ascending order and order date in descending order, that feels like a pretty good description to me. Like
imagine if you got this list and a checkbox next to every one and then a commit button. You could just, actually steps 5, 14, and 23, really useful. And then it automatically adds it as kind of like a little auto insert. But as you said, like navigation, you just literally look at the line of code. It just says connect to this database name. So some of these are fairly self-explanatory. But that one, or someday if it could actually identify the fact that if you buffered the table as a custom step, then remove duplicates. Like every time I do that for a client, I actually put a note in, I am buffering this because it maintains the sort order. But if it could ever, like in the future, identify, this is a common pattern that people do for this, that would be super cool. It just knows the engine well enough to know that this is required for X.
Yeah. So I do believe like the table.buffer, that's just like training the model. So especially as like we're getting into more and more of these examples, absolutely like, hey, let's just improve the model here. I do think like an additional skill, like just as more and more people start using this, is refactoring your code. You created some Power Query M. How can you just say, optimize this code for me? And it kind of moves some steps around, maybe like moving filters and selecting of columns near the top. Maybe like you'd said, kind of like these sort operations or kind of duplicates, like it adds that buffering for you. Absolutely.
So it basically does what the lazy evaluation does in the back end on query folding. So that will reorder your steps sometimes to make it faster, but you don't, it's a black box. You don't really know that it's happening necessarily unless you look at the query plan with the query analyzer. But yeah, that would be super cool if and it would save me a ton of time. Every single data set that I audit, I'll usually come in and, oh yeah, you broke query folding on step 1 and there's 14 steps after this. We're gonna take this from 15 to 60 seconds. Or there's a new one that I just learned recently from Chris Webb, which is the cross database folding, which I did not know was a function, and that has sped up a lot of reports that data sets that I have with clients.
Love it. All right, well, let's keep going through some examples here if you don't mind.
Sure.
I'm gonna do
Donald just had one question on like, so it can document this stuff. Do you think there might be potential for it to be able to like auto document, but also rename some of the steps if you want to?
Yeah, and that's been a comment, and I'd kind of love to learn a little bit more from you, Donald. Like in my previous example, we really wanted to kind of highlight, like, here's the icon that you should visually start looking for. Like, in my mind, Copilot should help train you in terms of, I've never used Power Query before, but here's visual indicators, or here's like titles of button names. Would it be more helpful to have it be the actual names, or to be like, I sorted by, ascending as like the full title name? Let us know. So if we were to use this example, right, read like we did, sort customer ID, AS, I can't remember what it was in completion, but absolutely we could have the Copilot add more descriptive names for you.
Yep, and that's what I do with a lot of this stuff too. Is like if there's one filter, I will say filtered this by blah or whatever it is, and then more complicated ones get it in the description. But I try to, I don't ever separately document my queries for clients. Like the description at the query level, the applied steps are named appropriately, and every other note needed is all in the individual step descriptions, and that is essentially all the documentation you need to explain what the query or the steps are doing for it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I love hearing the feedback there. So in our example, at least in the video that everyone was kind of making fun of me for, it was just to lay the tracks here, because we're going to keep building up stuff. Create a new query to list all the Man of War albums in their year of release, especially for Matthew Roche. I'm going to go and press send here. So we're reaching out into the ethers of the internet, and we're saying, Azure OpenAI has all this advanced information. Go out and find me these details. Generated a new query for us. Here are all the albums. Important thing I want to call out is Matthew Roche told me I was an absolute liar. These albums don't exist. Some of these Final Battle ones here in 2019, never actual albums. Models can't hallucinate. So this is why validating our results are important.
So, okay, so I didn't actually, so it can connect to whatever its web archive is and actually pull in data for you as a fixed, like as just a data entry table. Okay, so I didn't actually realize that. I was wondering that earlier about some of your states when you requested that. It's like, it didn't look like it was connecting to any of your other tables. Where was it getting the data from? So it gets it from online, and it can hallucinate on its online scrubs. So caution around asking it to fetch data externally, essentially.
Yeah, but that's where like it's a black box of coolness. Like,
yeah,
what can it produce? In this example, 50 U.S. states, their capital cities, like this is very well known. I would fully expect it to get all these right.
You should know. So let's have a little fun with this and get nerdy. So can you ask it to create a product inventory dimensional table for a D&D weapons shop that sells only cursed items?
Data for a
I'd say like, yeah, you can do Dungeons and Dragons weapon shop that sells only cursed items.
Dungeons, I don't even know. And Dragons weapon shop that
Only
Oh.
sells cursed items. No, and not just query like because we want a product table because it's going to give you like the names of the items plus I'm assuming some attributes. Yeah.
I don't think that this one will work, but we'll see.
Because I've asked it to create me items for D&D before, like give me a cursed sword that like has a nagging mother as a spirit inside of it. It gave me a really fun description.
It created something here.
Okay, it did create. It just added curse to everything. So hey, it did work. You know that okay. That's funny. I'm sure if like, and we don't, you can go on to the next thing, but I'm guessing if we probably actually gave it prompts to give detailed descriptions of all the attributes of the items and give me more rows, I'm sure it would fill out some more stuff.
Yeah,
that is fun though.
All right, so kind of looking at another example here, like order date, ship date, like it would be amazing to have like the total number of networking days between these two items, right? Like, yeah, we don't have that here today. If we were to like look at the add columns, like dates between.
Is there an actual function for DAX has a network day function, right?
Excel does.
Excel, okay, that's right. Excel does, but not directly in Power Query.
So create a function to calculate the number of working days between two dates, exclude Saturdays and Sundays, add an option to also have a holiday list of kind of dates to exclude. Asking it to create a custom function, again, use your imagination here, crazy model out there, build it for us, advanced editor.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Optional exclude list. So we can add our list of holidays. We can then pass this through to say start date, end date. I'll try this. I don't know if it'll work. Create a list of all US holidays in the year 2020. I'm just going back just because I don't know how up to date the model may be. So we'll see if this one's able to kind of get this return for us. Oh, it's spinning. Date.is holiday. Yeah, so it hallucinated a function here in this example.
Yeah, I remember asking for a couple Power Query things back in ChatGPT 3 era, and if you tell it something is a function that does something, it thinks that function exists.
Yep. Cool.
Holiday. Yeah. That looks like it would be a function almost, right? But I think that would assume that you would have to specify the country, and holidays are very nebulous on who considers what a holiday. Okay.
So hallucination, we got our error, undo right here on the card. Just press it, delete it. We moved on here with kind of our examples. Let me take us back here to kind of the PowerPoint because I just want to reground us before we kind of move on to the next section, if you don't mind.
Welcome to this.
Awesome. So current limitations. As we kind of saw, we needed to use kind of both the Copilot pane and then some of the actual UI itself. So as we were doing some of our data validation tasks, we said, I have the input, here's my output. I really want to go and inspect the data. It wasn't quite what I was looking for. Press undo, either on card or even kind of just pressing the X kind of within an applied steps list. Some things are easier with the UI than they are with Copilot in terms of like accuracy of the result, where you said, the sort rows, maybe it got pretty close. I can just do it in UI only. It's finding those augmented experiences where it actually makes you more productive. So in that one where we started chaining inputs together, where we said, we'll group this and then sort this and then do this other thing. UI, it's multiple clicks. Copilot, it's a single input. So find the balance there. For the actual Copilot itself, adding new steps. Currently does not have a data ingestion skill, just something that the team is kind of working towards. So right now, you do need to use kind of that get data, bring some data in so we can actually see the schema. What are your column names? What is the shape of your data? Otherwise, it just can't hallucinate what your table may be. We asked it to kind of create a US state table, some man-of-war tables. If you ask it to do something and maybe it does connect out to a data source where you said, here's my server address, here's my database, here's the schema, here's the table, just consider that a happy hallucination. It did it, but it isn't a supported skill.
Yeah.
And then here at the very end, some activities do still remain UI only. So if we were like, hey, I want you to go ahead and publish this and save it as a refresh schedule of every 30 minutes, it doesn't have those type of capabilities just today currently within public preview. But just kind of keep an eye out there, especially as we start looking at like prioritization of where do you actually feel the most benefit would come from these type of Copilot experiences. And that's why like I love being here today, Reed, just to like ask people within the chat. Like I absolutely believe that having documentation very easy on card. So you ask it to describe something, you read through the list. At the very end, just like that undo, you just say, add as descriptions. Boom, done. We write it for you. But you can always tell me if you think differently here. So especially as we step back and like, I see all the cool stuff people are doing out in the community. Nice. Kind of thinking about like different experiences.
There you go.
I love the Copilot pane, but I'm probably going to prioritize it in the areas where I can't do something, where I can do something much better than like currently the UI. And that's just as an experienced user. As inexperienced users, absolutely, I want them to start using the Copilot pane to start learning the program and then kind of figuring out where they should leverage Copilot or leverage the UI. For me, as a power user, I want to right click in my applied steps and I want to say describe until end. Boom, document everything for me.
Now, are these things that are just that are actually in the works, or is this the grab bag of like things that you would absolutely love to see in the product?
Yeah, things that I would absolutely love to see in the product, but obviously there's limited engineering hours. So where should we prioritize? In this example, again, advanced editor, if I could just start thinking about like the Copilot and VS Code experience where you're just writing code and you say, write a code block for me, and it just does it for you. How many people though are in the advanced editor versus the probably 99% of people that are UI only, right?
I think I'm hoping a lot of this too, just as just thinking about some ideas, the documentation and like I would say the more entry level automation you can do, the bigger the audience and probably where they're going to be focusing on stuff versus the 1% who does technical things. But I know one thing that I stumble across a lot, especially with dealing with bad data, is let's imagine you're bringing in like a product name column or something, and there's leading and trailing spaces or other stuff like that. So having automatic detection when there is some bad data, or maybe you do a join between two tables and you get an 80% match, but it realizes that there's the other 20% has like an 85% match via fuzzy lookup because it's the fact that some are uppercase, some are lower. So like maybe it can just prompt you. We noticed that there's some small discrepancies where there's a customer name that's nearly identical, but between these two systems, this is the difference. Do you want to apply an upper, a trim, or something else to get a higher match percentage? So I know that because we both swim in Power Query and do a lot of expert stuff, but I think that kind of stuff throws off a lot of people because they don't know when their data is bad. So I think if Copilot can someday start to help you understand where it's finding patterns of bad data and where it can improve, especially with appending, combining, or all that other stuff, I can see that as having giant benefits for really easily getting clean data as an output with a lot less effort.
Yeah. Cool. So this is embedded. We talk about documentation, which honestly is a thing of the past. Like documentation is stale as soon as you write it. You go back, you change something in UI, previous documentation is no longer relevant possibly. What if just an on hover event? You hover above your step and automatically Copilot explanation is just right there. Just like we did today with kind of the hover, and we could see our documentation, and we could see like the script samples too. On hover only, explanations just generated on the fly. I think that's a very interesting idea. I'd be curious from the people kind of hanging out in the chat or yourself, Reed, of like, let's get rid of documentation completely, hover above the thing, automatically described. What are your thoughts there?
I mean, that's the equivalent of that's in this view with the dependencies, but it has similar parallels.
Anywhere where code is at, you hover above and it provides an explanation.
So would it essentially be adding the description, but without actually putting it into the code? It's just in the tooltip.
Yeah.
I think by
default myself, I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, I think by default that would be cool to have, but still with the ability to take it and put it into the code if you want to, because there are some people who scrape the M code and then export that out of the UI for documentation archiving purposes, or if you're using Tabular Editor, you can still see the notes in there or other external tools. So I think this would be a good default to have. You have a setting in your I forget, it's not a package, but what's all the queries in a data flow? Like what's the name of the that like the group of them called? They're, because you can export and import this from like data flows to Gen 2 and all that. But they're, if you per package or per group of queries, it'd be nice to have a setting just to turn this on by default for all hovers, and then you can commit to code if you wanted to, from that drop down on the previous slide, if you wanted to push any of these auto descriptions back to the actual query and hard code it, then you could do that as well.
No, I agree. I love both those ideas. So I'm with you. Like at a certain point, we need to call it done. So once I'm done with my solution, I just want to have it documented, and then want to come in and kind of update in the future. Then that's great.
Exactly.
I do think the explanations just on the flyer are really fun for people who are just getting started and they may not know what does this code even mean that people had kind of done in the past. So
well, if they click transpose and like what on earth does this do, and then they get the little description that explains that, because like there's a lot of alien words for people, the first time they see those, if they're not used to data transformation.
Yeah, cool. So let's think about another scenario here, just kind of at the very bottom. You connect out to an Excel spreadsheet. You have a column that says, here are a bunch of street addresses, names of people. It should be like an account table, right? So one of your columns within that Excel spreadsheet is also full name, where we look at like the CDM tables that say, well, that full name column should really be first, middle, last, kind of broken out. So we just automatically apply those transformations for you in terms of like suggestions. You bring in your data and we map it exactly where it should be, what the layout and format it should be. Then that way you don't even have to think about data kind of transformations anymore. Thoughts there?
It normalizes it to a common structure for you automatically.
Absolutely. And then applying all the transformations.
Okay. That, I mean, at the end of the day, the auto transformations that can be done to save any amount of time are, I think, going to be probably where most of the effort needs to be spent. You want the broad. I think Gen 1 of this, I'm guessing, is going to hit on broad strokes, and then the second iteration of this, once all that's been solidified, is okay. Now for the technical people who are really good in like the code M, but they still have this manual process of like optimizing the query or finding the bad data, I can see as a Gen 2 of this stuff.
Absolutely. That's why it's an evolution. So let's get out of the PowerPoint deck. If people do have any questions or comments, though, please keep them coming. I'm going to jump back into kind of our browser session here. We're going to jump out of this one. We're going to go into kind of the next one in the list. So just some, I hope it's cool stuff. Let's see here. Actually, it might be really cool stuff. Yeah, I've got a few different ones out here I wanted to kind of show everyone. I'm going to come back to this one. It's just cool stuff at the moment. Cool. So again, we have our different tables here, kind of a much more complete structure that we may commonly see in our projects. Here are a list, because we already have queries in our pane, some of the skills that we can do, adding new steps, kind of describing, or even kind of creating that sample data. Again, we're grounded in the things that we did before we watched the 3-minute video that you laughed at me about, and you said, why are you showing me this? Because I want to keep building on top of this. Marital status, M's and S's. What does this mean, Reed? What does an M or what does an S mean?
On the, say the question one more time.
Marital status. M or S?
Married and single for each of those values. And I'm assuming that's everything that's in there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Where's the Facebook it's complicated?
So asking Copilot to not only find married, and then also finding the right column, and then kind of having the correct definition here. Again, it's these leap of faith moments, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is actually pretty cool.
Now, curiously, the add column from examples does let you select a certain number of columns to limit the scope of what it's analyzing. Did clicking the column tell it to look at that, or is it just scanning the table?
It's scanning the column names, so it's going through the schema.
Yeah, like so you just selected it for discussion purposes, but that didn't change the. Okay, yeah.
You got it. Yeah. So in this example, hey, filter rows. Like it was able to determine the correct column, and then also the correct M should mean married in the data sense. So
is there a way at any point, I guess just one follow-up to that. I love the fact that it could filter, but could you ever limit the scope of like select 3 columns, ask a question, and it's only going to look at the data in those 3? Just, you know, how you can do that with add column from example?
Let's try. I'm going to do an undo on this one real quick because I just don't know what the result may be. So let's do an ordinal position. So only using the first 3 columns, find the row where value is equal to 478. So I have no idea, you know, first 3, so 1, 2, 3 ordinal. I'm not telling it which column to find it in. So I think this is at a table.select rows. Again, we'll kind of see here though. I love the inputs. Please keep them coming from the chat too. If you have any that you would like us to kind of test out.
Alex wants to be we both want inquisitive questions for sure for anybody in the chat.
So it was able to determine here table.select rows customer key. It is interesting to me in the sense of like I would have expected it from my side to do an OR condition against all 3 of these. So my interpretation of the question is vastly different than what kind of the bot had interpreted.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. No, it's, I mean, it's fun to see how this thinks. Okay, here we go. Donald has one, so I'll pop this up here in just a sec. Come on. Yep. So can it do joins between tables?
So I'll say yes. While that isn't supported currently, it can do those happy hallucinations. So kind of dim customer, which is going to be a join. Man, I wish I had my descriptions here. Dim geography raw on geography key. Created a new query that joins dim customer raw and dim geography raw together. We'll see if it errors out. We'll see if it does a happy hallucination for us. I'm always very curious at the inputs. Yeah, customer ID. It wasn't able to find. So unfortunately, in this example, it hallucinated a column, but that's why it's so much fun to do the data validation. If we would have
you get a pretty quick output,
yeah. If we would have specified the column and helped it more, but at a certain point, like, is it better to build the prompt or is it better to just use the UI? And I think that's where like the augmented experience is going to kind of come in at for a lot of folks.
So we are eventually getting the like modern Power Query for desktop at some point. You know, just Subsea Data Flows Gen 2. Is there any thoughts on like because 95% of the interface outside of Copilot will eventually be in Power BI Desktop? Do you think the Copilot will ever also be part of the Power BI Desktop experience, or only like a service-based thing?
I want to ask why you're trying to limit me here, Reed. Why only Power BI Desktop? Why not Excel Online? Why not Excel Desktop?
I mean, anywhere that Power Query exists, right? I mean, if there's the Power Query interface, ideally you will have we want parity between all of them because it's less complicated for people, and you get the power. You'd have to probably have a web connection because it has to hit against the engine. But otherwise, it would be really nice just to see this everywhere to make our lives easier.
Yeah, and that's the goal here, is to obviously continue to improve the experience with not only the accuracy, but then also kind of a lot of the different things that we're seeing within the Copilot pane. And then we're starting to bring that to the different hosts. So Power BI Desktop, Excel, like working with the Excel team on a lot of this stuff too, and they're just awesome. Shout out to Guy Hunkins. Anywhere where Power Query is hosted, this is where we're going to bring it. So in that way, it's a very seamless experience. If you're using Copilot and Power Query, through Fabric or through desktop, like your skill set doesn't have to change just because you're using it in a different place. Awesome. Let me try something here then, if you don't mind. I'm going to separate the login name. So here, email address, login name, and then also the domain. So separate the login by username and company. I'm not saying split by delimiter. These aren't words that I'm accustomed to. I don't know the buttons and I don't know the clicks of Power Query. Can it take my inputs and translate those? Username and company. I'm learning the interface to read, right? Like I'm using a split. here are the words. Oh, next time I come into Power Query, I may try and just use the UI only. Like, how do you start learning through Power Query? Cool. Let's try something else here, because you had asked about like a list of instructions. Education, I've got multiple things here. If I was to do like a text filters, I could go through this, I could add the advanced, I could keep adding, right?
Exactly.
You already know those clicks. I get a list through my Excel file, I get a list through my Outlook email. It says, make this adjustment, so that's only these 3 items. I copy and paste that list. Something I'd love to do in a Power BI slicer, right? Like have a drop and paste a list of values. Pasting this now. Only keep education. Boom. Filter rows.
Nice. Okay.
So instead of spending all those clicks doing this one-in-one after using the advanced filter, using the correct or condition, or should have been an and, like I'm very confused, just go do this thing for me. How many clicks did we just save? Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let me go back here. I'm going to kind of delete a few of these, and I want to go down to, again, maybe the dim customer query. Got all these customers. I want to kind of look at kind of their median income here. So here's the yearly income. List.median, I'd have to go through the advanced editor, and I'd have to add that as kind of a static scalar value, and I'd then pass that back through to my querying filter condition to say, only bring me back customers whose yearly income is above the median value. That's a little bit more complex, kind of from a Power Query and M standpoint. For inexperienced users, knowing that they can create scalar steps that then pass and skip through, very complex. Only keep rows where the income is above median value. Let's go and pass this through. And I love the examples coming through in chat, so please keep them coming. Awesome. Custom step here. I'm going to go and unravel this here if you don't mind. Again, we'll have this updated. So I was able to generate this list.median for me, looking over that table column, returning it as a scalar value, then passing that variable back through to my filter row step and the median income right here. Complex M.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So not only is it the simple stuff where you're like, add a filter from this, we're kind of using vague inputs. We started chaining inputs together. We also started passing through a list of items to configure, as opposed to like doing all the UI clicks. So it's finding that level of productivity. And then I'm going to kind of use this example here again. So out in our dim employee table, we have these values. We have their phone numbers here. And I'm going to ask it for kind of that jump out into the internet. Like, I don't know anything about this. Only keep employees whose phone number is in the North American number planning for the Northeastern Kansas region. I don't know what that means. Do you read?
Not really.
The weird things I look up on Wikipedia. So from here, anyone that's out in Kansas, please let us know. It was able to determine for the Northeastern Kansas region that there are a list of values between 785 and 913, and then it passes back to us to say, here are those customers that are in those regions. Read, again, thinking about Power Query authoring. If I got this instruction, I was building my Power Query, I then had to open up another tab. I'd have to go out and find the web page. I'd have to go out and find these exact values. I then had to copy those, bring those back into my authoring, pass these through as a filter. I didn't leave my Power Query authoring.
Yeah, I mean, it simplified the end-to-end process of this stuff without having, and helping you keep context of what you're doing without switching constantly between stuff.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Could it do something where it could find like the comparing against an average? So if you had a customer table that had like, well, it would be more of a it would be against a sales table. But if you asked, you know, like, does a particular customer have greater sales than the average total sales amount per customer, something like that? It would have to be done on a fact table because you need multiple rows per customer. it would have to, per customer ID, figure out the grand total of each customer, get a single average number, and then per customer, compare that customer total versus the table average of customer total sales.
I'll say I'd be interested to see the results. And then
it's all within one query.
Yeah. Could it do it? Absolutely. This was always where I'm always thinking, like, is it the right tool for the job? When I'm thinking about that level of analysis, I would be like, I would rather see that in a DAX formula and then kind of through a table. So I'm always kind of curious of, like, what are the things you want this thing to do? What are the things you don't want it to do?
That's fair.
Yep. But if I was an Excel user, I absolutely would want to have that value. Then I could then write back to a table. So that's where it's very important to kind of understand the different personas of use.
That's fair.
Let me exit this. I'm going to create a new thing here now. Again, hopefully this is the right one. Yes. Awesome. Large multi-step thing, a bunch of paginations, so list.generate code. I found out on the internet, I don't know how to do pagination with REST APIs, move to the next page and move to the next page. I copy this. Again, I'm hanging out in Ken Puls's GitHub repo. I'm hanging out in MK's repo. They created this amazing solution. I don't know what this stuff does. Ask it to describe, right? Yeah. Like copy and paste code from the internet. What were they doing? Oh, now I get it. That step means this thing. This is absolutely where I want people to think about different ways to kind of keep accelerating the understanding of the language. All right, let's give this thing just a quick moment here.
And this is where you'll want on the query level, you can just right-click careers and describe this query.
Yeah, exactly. So if we were to kind of go back up here, FX Get API takes a parameter page start, parameters, goes to an API here from a careers website, does the page count data, page count, and kind of does the pagination here with the list.generate function to iterate over the pages of the API. Oh, complex code. I now get it. Like,
yeah, with the pagination and everything. Okay.
So we can keep going through, at the very end, just like the undo button, I would expect to have it at the very bottom here, just like add as documentation. I read it. I agree with all the descriptions. Those are what I'm looking for. Go ahead and add it. Otherwise, kind of the other experience, I would also like to see something just at an individual step level, kind of like delete or delete until end that just says describe or describe until end. Like those would be very cool things to see just from an actual UI menu. But that's two different ways of thinking about it. Awesome. So let me try something here, Reed. I'm learning a little bit more about APIs. In this example, I copied and pasted the code. I'm going to just kind of scale back here a little bit. Create a new function that connects out to Open Weather Maps current weather data API with two parameters, the API key and the city that I need to pass through. Created the M for me here. Here's the URL. The structure should actually be a little bit more improved. I'll nerd out and I'll talk about that later here, but create a new query that contains all the 50 US states and their capital cities, data that I don't have, data that I would need to go out and find a compatible HTML table out on a website, click get data from web, import table. I didn't leave my authoring session. State, capital name. I've got my query here. I'll just go ahead and give this a name, FX weather. Go to my Copilot query. For anyone watching the stream now or in the future, don't worry, I will delete these keys after today's event. So enjoy them now.
Somebody can't go ahead and use your keys.
Yep. Pass in the capital city. Awesome. We have our.
If you can just on the browser, do the magnification one more in. There you go. Cool.
Yep. Awesome. Calling to a API endpoint that we have no idea about its structure. What are all the different things that we need to satisfy? Just something that's already commonly documented on the internet, though. Here, asking it to create this table, these 50 states just generated for us. Here again, I'm now passing through each one of these cities through. Bringing back weather data, latitude, longitude. I don't know anything about REST APIs, Reed, but I know what I need to have at the very end here. I give my prompts, I give my inputs. Copilot is able to generate it for us. Here's the current weather across all 50 cities. using the Open Weather Map API.
That's really nice that you can just ask it to essentially, you know, you connect to the API, whatever the keys that are in the interface of the website, where it's like you need to provide X and Y. And it seems like basically explain it in English. It will give you the inputs for that. And there we go. I saw a little heart that pops up. So we get some likes from the chat on that. That makes it less scary to start having to, you know, connect to those external sources. I like that.
Yeah. All right. We're on YouTube. I want to connect out to YouTube, create a new query that is a function called the YouTube API, fetch all videos for our channel. It includes the API key and channel ID as my parameters. Again, I don't know anything about REST APIs. I don't know anything about all this other crazy stuff. Maybe it's a very vague statement, or maybe it's very descriptive in terms of the inputs that I want. Copilot is able to generate it here for us. I think that this will kind of break, and this will be a really awesome example. So let me try and pass this through again for anyone watching. You have a very limited window here of seeing my keys. So do it now. Enjoy it now.
Everyone take a screenshot.
Yep. Awesome. Column snippet of the table wasn't found. Okay.
Snippet title. Okay.
Table.rename column snippet title. All right. So this one didn't quite work. I'm going to go ahead and remove that. I'm going to try and do this again.
Comment at the end. There you go.
Thanks, Reed. That's okay. Invoke function snippet.
Nice. Okay. I was concatenating the name of the query with the table, and that's why I wasn't finding the word title.
So here's my channel. Here are all the videos that I have out in my YouTube.
Is your first one back in 2015?
Possibly, yeah.
Looks, I may considering it's the name of the actual blog. Was your a self-titled for the first one?
Yeah.
Oh no,
My description, yeah. That's
okay. Nice.
Thumbnails, channel title, upcoming. No, there's not an upcoming live broadcast. They're liars. Read in this example, it got us 95% of the way there. We did a little debugging as more of like a experienced user, and it still worked at the very end. How do you feel about like 90 or 95% accuracy?
In terms of like what to aim for?
In this experience, like absolutely, we should always aim for 100% accuracy of the results.
Of course, yeah.
It may not be realistic based upon the information provided within the input. Maybe we could add more detail. Who knows what it could be? Productivity is still saved though, right? Like, I wouldn't have.
So there was one comment from Sean, and more of a conversation started to have on this. So we have a lot of hard-coded text names in red text, which sometimes can be prone to refresh failures and changing type, renaming columns, things like that. So what are some thoughts on just how the M code's being written?
Hard-coded column names in red text prone to refresh failures. You could have it do like dynamic column renaming. So rename all the columns in my table to make them uppercase.
I just had a video actually about that a couple weeks ago where I did an update from a blog that looks for underscores and or uppercase but no spaces, and it just auto renames all of them without actually referencing a single column name.
Yeah, and this one did too. Texted upper and used list.zip. A format they have not used, but like the complexity of the model was able to take that and then understand. Like, let's go ahead and pass this through. I'm going to break this down here just for folks.
It is a good call out though, is the like when possible, the fewer specific columns you point to in your queries, the more stable the M code will be when built. Just in terms of changes to the structure sometime down the road, which is usually why I the auto change data type that's like sometimes happens on like 85 columns and most of them are text. You probably don't need to change the data type on that many of them.
I deleted a step there. What do you mean it doesn't match? You lie. Column names. Oh, I forgot the end. Of course. I forgot it. But yes, in this example, oh my gosh. I'm just gonna have to do it again. I apologize. Let me delete it all.
No. We want sandbox. We want experimentation.
Right click, copy. Love that little trick. Thank you, Timu, for putting that in for us. Again, asking it to rename. I could ask it to split columns, like we saw in that 3-minute video you kept yelling at me about. Like, absolutely, you could have it do all this cool stuff, like affecting the schema. All right, expanded snippet. Let me keep this, and then we're going to unroll these here very soon. So thanks for those who are early adopters. Awesome. Publish that. Oh, it's because I think I know why.
Did it not expand? Oh, it looks like it expanded, but then it skipped, and there we go.
Yeah, it's the unzipping. I'm just gonna leave it as a subquery. I think I had to do way too much here to kind of fix it, but I'll submit a bug here for kind of some improvements of what I would do. But generating, leaving the subquery.
Here's another one for you. So are there any plans to provide sample prompts that would be useful to end users, either in this tool or in Microsoft Learn sometime in the future?
Yeah, so there's actually a couple different kind of like prompt learn modules out on Microsoft Learn today. Definitely start taking a look at those. There are some tutorials just for various Copilot experiences, like Data Factory has a Copilot tutorial, Power BI has a tutorial as well, just in terms of like, here are some starter prompts to get you up and running. Again, I think some of that is helpful. The other side, though, is I actually want you to bring your own vocabulary and your own creativity. So providing us that feedback of like, here are the words that me and my users use. Here's my the things that I would expect. That's where we can help kind of improve this as we go. Like in the examples where I use the term join, there is no join word in Power Query. It's called merge, but it was to detect that, by looking at various synonyms.
I mean, if you do merge, is it called join type or is it called merge type? In that when you can choose between inner, right, or left.
Yeah.
So they at least they have the word in there, but Microsoft likes renaming steps. It's not union, it's append. It's not join, it's merge. But they were going for business user terms rather than database developer terms when they conceptualized it.
Awesome. So let me close out of this one. I'm going to go to kind of this last really, really cool stuff here. We're just connected out to an Azure SQL database. I've got both this table here from addresses. I don't know anything about Power Query. I wrote this SQL script. My user said, hey, I want you to translate this into Power Query. So I'm going to put in this input that says, translate the following SQL to M steps. Select.
Oh, I'd like that. I would like that. You know those customers who paste the custom SQL code into the beginning of their steps, which is like slap hands, please do not do. That is not performant at all.
So select our group by here, our order by, able to translate this. Let's go and unwind this here if you don't mind again. And we'll see these here within the steps. So doing code translation. SQL users, you love your language. We love our language here on the Power Query M side. Able to be translated. SQL to M. Maintain query folding here on the right-hand side. Absolutely love it. Our Python,
that's really cool.
Our Python friends are now finding out about Power Query. They're doing very similar here. Convert the following Python to M. So this DF, my data frame group by. Here are my two different columns. Here's the size. And then I also want you to sort by kind of that ascending equals false. Passing in Python to M. And then we will see here. Awesome. Able to be translated, able to be folded. Unwind this again just here real quick. Able to do the group by and the sort steps. Things I don't know is like, what is the level of complexity before it starts hitting that 90 or 95% accuracy level? Mm-hmm. These are the things I'm looking for people to try. Now that you've seen it through kind of events like today where it's, oh my goodness, we start out with like a simple filter. We then started doing chaining. We then started doing this other thing. We then started having it write custom code for us, like a function. We then had it call out to web APIs that I have know nothing about web APIs. I then step into Power Query. I'm a Python user. I need to hand this over to the next person in line who says, I only do UI. I don't do anything else. Don't hand me code. Okay, cool. Here's my Python solution, translate it to M. You're doing a code conversion from like a SQL project into Power Query.
I like that.
Here's the SQL, generate an M. That's the cool stuff where I'm like, I want people to come out here and play with it. I want you to test it. I want you to beat up on it just the same of saying, here's where it didn't meet my needs. Here's where I think it could be improved. That's why I absolutely love kind of being a part of this session today, Reed. So I'll pause.
I would hope, like, because I love the fact that it can translate. As I mentioned, I think a lot of people, and I want to reiterate on the fact that try not to paste custom SQL code into your queries. If you go to source, connect to SQL and database, either A, put that into a view or use Power Query, because nothing without a bit of M code hacking can fold on top of that. There's workarounds, but is a workaround. So this is a great way to quickly shift that. So it would actually be awesome if it could even see that type of a query, realize there's custom SQL code, and then it will do this, but it's the auto optimization that you talked about, where it actually can scan and identify ways to make the query faster for you.
Yep.
I just did a video a couple weeks ago where I did an add column from example that, if I'm remembering my code, yeah, I asked it to combine two things, and if it combines text, it added the English en-us as the format type. That breaks the query folding, but if I delete that, query folding it was maintained. So even being able to scan just some steps and realize, oh, this thing against whatever database you're connected to, if I tweak the code a bit, same functionality, but the folding will now happen on 15 steps rather than 12 or something like that. I can imagine that is a very wonderful evolution of this, which is the Rosetta Stone translations and the auto optimization that could happen will be such a time saver for people and just help teach them the tool.
Yeah, and I have to think of like when more and more Copilots start being kind of interconnected, you have your run history of kind of your data flow in this example. Hey, this data flow has been running. Here are some suggestions of code that you could put in to optimize. Would you like to accept or reject? Like, that would be amazing to have like all these different things kind of combining and just to kind of a more intelligent experience.
Exactly.
Again, I want to ensure that like we're meeting the mark here. So especially as people start playing around with like the descriptions, let me know. I've heard some really good feedback, especially on like the step names. Does it make sense that we should like automatically describe this for you? Or should it be more aligned to like the UI action today where what if like a keep top rows is going to say, you know, I added a keep top rows action, because that's honestly better for the inexperienced user of saying, oh, here's the action they did. Here's the button. Here's the icon. Here's the title. We just really want to think about like, what is the largest market of value? As we said, like power users like you and me, Reed, like right click, describe, boom, done, added to the advanced editor. We absolutely understand like we're going to find the areas that improve our experience, but it's not always going to be the Copilot pane. It could be the UI. I jump out to the Copilot pane to do something very complex that would take me just a lot of code to go hunt down, or a lot of code that I would have to kind of hand write. And this is the last example here. Create a new query that is a calendar table starting from 2017 to current date, and add a lot of columns to slice and dice my data with. Vague. I left the model to kind of give some interpretation here of what the term lots of and slicing the dicing the data, able to add how many steps here, like 15 steps all in one. We didn't have to do this through the UI read. This would have taken us click after click, creating this dynamic current date with that datetime.local now, wrapping with the datetime.date. So luckily I was able to figure this out. So next time it refreshes, this will automatically update. I want this thing to do a 445 calendar. That is my North Star. Create a 445 calendar for me. Boom, done.
Are each of those steps isolated? Meaning like none of them are based off of another custom column that was added. They're all off. Okay, nice. They're all based off the date column. Because sometimes people will like, if they want quarter year, they'll concatenate the year column and the quarter column. So if you deleted the year column step, that breaks a subsequent query. So any one of these in theory could be deleted in isolation and the query would still run. The only thing they're dependent on is the initial date column, which I would argue is a best practice for calendar tables if you have those, because they're really quickly and easily configurable by just getting rid of columns you don't need from an end user perspective.
I'm going to try with a rich fiscal calendar. I think I was doing this the other day, and it was like up into the 30s.
Ask it to make offsets. Ask it to add offsets, which is like, like a year offset, month offset. Because I use those a lot as a quick and easy way to do relative filtering for customers who aren't as familiar with DAX. So I would wonder if it knows what like calendar offsets are.
So it gave us a hallucinated function here, duration.from days. Where's that at? Duration.from days. What step was that?
Yeah.
It must have been early.
You can click the show details over on the left.
No,
it
pops up the matchup
so that doesn't take you to the step.
No.
There used to be a go to error button, right? I mean, there is in desktop.
There is in desktop. Dates list, duration.from days.
Ah, there it is.
Yeah, we don't need this. It should just be 365.
Let's see. Duration dot between days, or is it date time dot duration?
I don't know.
It's just the duration function. There you go. Yeah.
I don't know what I was hallucinating here, but there we go. 95% of the way there. Again, 30 to 2, so 28 steps added. Dynamic as well. We kind of collapsed a few different things here. Let's get rid of this pane. Pretty long query that we didn't have to write ourselves. Fiscal year, fiscal quarter name, month name.
Just for curiosity, can you just do a prompt and just say add a month offset column? I'm wondering if I feel like a good chunk of date tables that I see in Power BI have those these days. But yeah, if it just add a month offset column, see if it actually does anything.
I'll be curious myself, Reed. Again, this is what I love. Is like
there's enough blogs out there that it has the web repository to probably know what this is, because there's quite a few people have blogged about that as things. And let's see, a little more.
No, it just got a 0.
Date.month.dates minus. Okay, so it's comparing the month to the month. Okay, so it tried, but couldn't quite figure out what it was needed. Okay.
Yeah, we'd probably want to add a little bit more detail. I think in my one that I did kind of last week, I was doing like fiscal year starting on July 1st, and I had to give it a little detail to say, if you're Q3, you should actually be Q1. And then from there, it kind of adds the if this, then that conditional logic. But
exactly,
that's the cool stuff where I didn't have to build all this by hand. Maybe it's like a little bit of slight editing at the very end, either to like adding an additional step with the Copilot or just doing it through like a UI. 95% of the way there is still a lot of productivity.
When it generates it itself, it actually renames the column. These aren't just generic added column. It actually gives the names.
Yeah. So that's like really cool too, of like, here are the column names. Are these helpful for you if we were to start doing this on like the added step? I don't know yet. This is where we kind of love listening to our kind of our community. Awesome. And then I think someone had just asked here kind of about the Copilot. Do you want to pop that one up?
Yep.
To PySpark inside of a notebook. You absolutely please try that within the Copilot for notebooks. I think that they'd be very equally interested to see if we could convert from M to PySpark. I don't see any reason why we couldn't, as long as the languages could be mapped. But we'll kind of learn as we go here with all the different Copilots.
I guess if you're upgrading to like an enterprise lakehouse or something, and you need to put something into a data pipeline, that would kind of make sense to probably take something that used to be data flow and now you're moving into PySpark and into a data pipeline.
Yeah. Persona though, if the thing that I want to use is Power Query and the interface that I want to alter with is the Power Query editing, I'm going to stick with this. If I am taking over like a business department's project and it's all Power Query M, and I say, I don't know anything about this crazy language, convert it to PySpark for me. Those are great use cases where I think that the AI stuff really is helpful for us. Awesome. And I think there's one last question here, just maybe with respect to like, is it coming to like Power BI desktop? We talked about that a little bit earlier. We do want to have this hosted in as many places as where Power Query is possible. Today, though, it is currently available within the Copilot for Data Factory within Microsoft Fabric. That's a very long title. Let us know here. Getting feedback as we're kind of in that public preview state, and then especially as we start looking to bring it to all the other experiences. But I would probably say Power BI desktop or kind of Excel Online, maybe kind of head to head here in terms of integrations. We've talked with both teams; they're both excited for it. It's just kind of completing some of these last mile bugs and issues that we're maybe coming across just through use that we were really going to kind of shore up for users.
It's has a high ceiling of potential for sure.
Yes.
And already started with a lot of cool stuff out of the gate. So yeah.
Well, I think we're approaching time here, Reed. So I'll kind of defer to you. I just want to say thank you so much for kind of bringing me on today. I've been doing a lot of shorts just through like LinkedIn or kind of Twitter, showing people like 30-second inspiration videos. I'm really looking for people like yourself, Reed, out in the community to be like, I tried this, I can't believe that it works. Or, hey, I tried this, it wasn't quite what I was looking for, but here's some feedback to kind of improve it. I'm just really excited to kind of see what our community comes up with. I think these calendar tables are just awesome examples of saying, it built a fiscal calendar for me. It built a rich 445 calendar for me. Things that would have taken me and my users just hours and hours and hours of research, finding the experts, copying their code, adjusting their code, or even like the API examples where I just see that constantly through like Reddit and other places. How do I do pagination over this REST API? Take my code, paginate it. It'll generate the list.generate for you. It's amazing stuff. Again, though, like, we're all scratching the surface here. Nobody has been here before. Nobody knows about generative AI in this context. So it's all very cool right now.
And I had one other question from Lai, so we can just reiterate the fact that today it is something, pop this up here, it's only available in premium workspaces in Fabric, but there are conversations, as you mentioned, happening with the Power BI desktop team and also the Excel team to essentially, hopefully just have feature parity everywhere for, if you see Power Query as an interface, you'll see the same version of Power Query with the same transformation options depending on your SKU with whatever that product might be. But otherwise, you know, the Power Query will be consistent experience across all of the different tools that it is integrated into. Yeah,
absolutely. So right now, this current experience is available in Fabric. Just keep an eye out, though. We want to bring it everywhere. Power Query, everything. So
exactly. No, this has been really fun, and like I've certainly enjoyed nerding out on some of this stuff, and anything Copilot related is like, how can I break it? I want to get into hallucinate just because that helps us also understand, like, okay, so we can get up to this, but this is the line, and like we shouldn't do anything past this, and anything under this is where we can have it assist us. At the end of the day, it's, we want to save ourselves time, right? Repetitive tasks should need to be done, which can then be automated and save us a lot more time for the higher level thinking that today, at least, the ChatGPTs can't do quite yet.
Yeah, and I want people to also be empathetic to, like, if a new user was to step into Power Query for the first time, how can they start taking their language, getting data prepared, getting it down to the next system, whether it be like an Excel spreadsheet, Power BI desktop file. Like, I don't want people to fall off of saying, well, this technology is too hard. They never get to the point of finding the value. That's where I really see a lot of value within the different Copilots, making the early stuff very easy to get started with. And then for people who have started learning the actual product, learning the different things, how do I increase your productivity? Chaining things, imagining REST APIs by just saying, I reviewed the docs, go do this thing for me. There's so many cool things that I don't even think we've scratched the surface on. And that's what I'm so excited for, just for all the Power Query fans out there.
Yes, just wanted to thank you as well. Apparently he or she is over in Japan. But yeah, thank you, by the way, for all the good questions on that as well. You had some really good targeted questions today. And as Alex has mentioned repeatedly through the stream, like, that's what we both love to do if we're ever presenting, is it's a lot more fun to actually interact with the audience than to say the same 45-minute talk on repeat every single time. So yeah.
Cool. Well, then let's wrap it up here, Reed. Thank you so much for hanging out today. Thanks for everyone for also hanging out on a Friday. I know it's kind of a holiday week. Hopefully you got to spend some time with kind of family and loved ones. Tag us on socials. Hopefully we'll see you at some of the upcoming conferences. I'll be in Vegas in March, hoping to get on a couple other, maybe like Atlanta, SQL Saturday, and some other fun stuff. So hopefully I'll cross paths.
Come to SQL Bits.
I think that train has already left. Like, there's too many cats over there in Europe now. It's very limited.
Yeah, that's fair. The parties are so fun, though.
I know. SQL Bits is a blast, and hopefully I can get back maybe kind of the following year. But thank you, Reed. Any other questions that come up, just please let us know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everyone have a great rest of your weekend. Alex, you as well. And thank you so much again for coming on. And I'm sure I'll have you back on again sometime next year.
Yeah. Next year's right around the corner, so we'll get it on the books.
Exactly. Cool.
Thanks, Reed. Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And if you want to help support this channel, take a look at our channel memberships or our merchandise store for cool swag. And last but not least, please consider sharing this video on your social media platform of choice to help our channel grow. So, until next time.